How far from the checker flag? That's a fine! Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
We thought it'd be a great time to bring on our special guest for this episode and debrief a little bit about the win and a little bit about his career, and that's going to be Tony Palmer, the race engineer for the number 12 Team Penske Ford Mustang of Ryan Blaney on the NASCAR Cup Series. Tony, welcome to the Team Blaney Podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So, Tony, just to start off, congratulations on that victory. I know it's a long time coming.
Thank you.
Your first points win, at least in this position, I think, on the Cup Series. Just any quick emotions from that win before we get into a little bit of history behind your career?
I mean, it's a pretty awesome win to be able to win the 600, to be here at home. Obviously, like we talked about earlier, it was a super long weekend, but certainly worth the wait. It's a pretty sweet win to get for the team for sure.
So, Tony, you're a 2009 graduate of West Virginia University, where you got a mechanical engineering degree. First off, Dale Blaney, Ryan's uncle, was a star basketball player at WVU. I know you didn't go to school around the same time, but was there still any Blaney memorabilia around at the school, or did you ever hear stories going back to those years?
So actually kind of a small world. One of my really good friends growing up, his name's John. His dad was actually a trainer at WVU when Dale played basketball. So I've always, known quite a bit about the Blaney family. I actually watched Dale run sprint cars at Sharon. I think we were in college. Me and my buddy went up there, and cool raceway. Got to meet Lou Blaney. It was a pretty cool experience, but definitely familiar with Dale and his time at WVU playing basketball. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
So I understand you played sports in high school, played football, involved in stick and ball sports, but what really got you into racing, and when did you kind of catch that interest?
So honestly, I was probably about middle school. So this would have been around the 2000, 2001 era. Just kind of, started watching it on the weekends, kind of really got into it. And actually so freshman year of high school, in our homeroom class, the teacher told us, okay, write down on a piece of paper what you want to do when you grow up. We're going to open the senior year of high school, and you're going to see how much that's changed over the years. And I wrote down, at 15 years old, ninth grade, I wrote down, I want to go work on race cars. I want to go work in NASCAR. And lo and behold, I was, coming around to graduation, and they showed me that they handed out it was in a little envelope, and I read it, and it's like, well, is this still what you want to do? Like, of course, right? And I saw my homeroom teacher. I was back home visiting my folks years ago. It was probably like 8 or 9 years ago. And I ran to my homeroom teacher, and he's like, so what are you doing now? I told him. He's like, wow. He's like, that's pretty cool. That's what you said you always wanted to do. And here we are.
That's pretty cool. So is there anything, so obviously you ended up going and getting that engineering degree. Did you do that with that mindset of that goal to work in race cars? And was there anything at WVU that kind of helped prepare you for that experience?
So yeah, that was always the goal. I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to go the race engineering route back then. So this was like the early 2000s. Back then, you could kind of go more like a car chief, crew chief route. Obviously, a lot has changed in the last 20 years. So when I was in college there, I was on the SAE, the Mini Baja team, but I also did. There was a small dirt car chassis builder there in Morgantown. It's called Hassey Chassis. So I actually started out just sweeping the shop floor. We did dirt modifieds, like the 3/4 cars. So I started grinding old chassis with a torch and a grinder in the parking lot, and kind of worked my way up through college. By the end, I was hanging bodies, doing wiring harness, to suspension, the whole nine. So then I decided when I graduated I was going to move down here. Actually, between my junior and senior years of college, I came down to learn how to be a pit crew guy. So it's actually how I got my first job at Randy Moss Motorsports when I moved down here after college. I just got my job as a pit crew tryout, and started as a mechanic and a pit crew guy. Did truck racing for 2 or 3 years. Moved up to the then Nationwide Series for a year, and then I eventually went cup racing in 2013. That was my first job as an engineer. I had an interview with Bobby Hutchins, and he's like, you have this engineering degree. I wanted a mechanic job. He's like, you have this engineering degree, you could do a lot with it. What do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. But he talked me into it. So I went the engineering route, and then I was there for 5 years, and I joined Penske in 2018. The beginning of 2018, I was on the 21 car for a few years, and then Jonathan took over as crew chief, and then when he came over to the 12, I came over with him.
So you mentioned that story, and it's actually a story we've had multiple members of the 12 crew on with us, and it's almost the same thing. It's like at some point you guys take like a leap of faith and you just move to North Carolina.
Yep.
Well, can you talk about doing that and like the nerves involved in that, or just trying to make that dream come true? Like, what was that like at that time?
Yeah. So actually, so when I was in college, everybody would ask me, so what do you want to do? And I tell them, okay, so what's your backup plan? It's like, well, I don't have a backup plan. This is what I'm going to do, right? So, and I worked at Advanced Auto Parts. Actually, I worked at a grocery store in high school, and I moved to Advanced Auto Parts. I just want to get around cars more, right? Which ironically ended up becoming one of our sponsors, which is pretty cool. So I did that for a while. I was like, all right, when I graduate, I'm moving to North Carolina, and that's it. So I packed up my pickup truck. A guy that I had met when I was down here, learned to be a pit crew guy. I was a tire carrier for a few years before I moved over to just mechanic side, engineering side. He's like, yeah, you can room with me when you move down here. You got someplace to stay. Packed up everything I had in my '97 Silverado. I had my clothes in the back, my bed in the back, a lamp, some stuff in the passenger seat, and that's it. I just moved down here. I didn't have a job. I graduated in '09, so moved down here around June. And I started out as just like there was a organization that did just like, basically they would put pit crew guys together and rent you out to ARCA teams, truck teams, whoever. I mean, we drive all day, go pit a race somewhere 8 hours away for $200, and then get in the van, drive right back to Charlotte. Did whatever you had to do. So I did that for the remainder of 2009, and then at the end of the year, I got a tryout at Randy Moss Motorsports on the 5 truck with Mike Skinner. That was my first gig. Got the pit crew tryout, and just kind of made it from there. But honestly, like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. You just come down here with the determination. It's like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So that failure wasn't an option. So just hammer down.
What were you doing over the wall? Were you carrying? Were you jack? Were you actually on the gun? Or
I was a tire carrier. This was obviously back in the day when we had 2 tire carriers. I was primarily a front carrier. I did some rear stuff, but yeah, I started out as a front tire carrier.
Now those jobs have definitely evolved over probably when you did it to now,
sure.
where it's like elite athletes that are going over the wall. Do you think that that you would have still been successful if you stayed on the pit crew side of things? Now, again, you were an athlete, at least in high school, or do you think that it was a good move to maybe go on to the mechanical and engineering side of stuff?
I mean, I would like to think that I could maybe still hang. Obviously, I'm not as young as I used to be. Obviously, it has changed quite a bit, especially now. The tire carriers got a lot more running than we used to have to do back in the day. So now that you're down to one, that certainly changes the dynamic quite a bit. Plus, the other side of the coin is, I mean, with anything with athletics, as you get older, I mean, your body doesn't keep up so much. So, like, the long-term goal or the longevity of a pit crew job is a little different than having a mechanic job or an engineering job or something like that. So the long run is definitely has its benefits.
so
Now,
for the people listening, okay, so now you've evolved. You're interviewed and you've gotten the engineer job. What does that entail? What type of work are you doing during the week and then on race day as an engineer?
So a lot of different things. So primarily, a big part of the job is providing the crew chief with information, right? So he can make the calls and decisions that he makes. Kind of throughout the week, basically, I'll just briefly walk you through the week. Monday's kind of the first probably half of Monday, the 2/3 of Monday is kind of debriefing the week before, right? So you'll come in, you'll break some stuff down, you analyze. Typically every Monday, me, Hassler, Ryan, and our spotter Josh will get together. We'll go have lunch, kind of do a little debrief. At that point, we've already broken some stuff down, some analytics, kind of recap the weekend, and then later in the day, you're kind of already moving on to the next week. Tuesday is all about getting next week's car set up, kind of prepping with race strategy kind of stuff, kind of getting your game plan for the week ahead. So yeah, a lot of my job is kind of like the behind the scenes, like getting Hassler the information that he needs, even Ryan and Josh, so they can make the decisions that they make on a weekly basis.
Now you mentioned Josh Ryan Spotter there for a second, and you were at JTG when Allmendinger won that Cup race. Now, can you correct
Yes,
me if
sir.
I'm wrong? Was Josh was spotting in that race as well?
Yes, he was a spotter. We were last night. We were in victory lane, standing next to each other. I said, "You realize the last time I did this, you were standing next to me too." So yeah, it's been 9 years since my last Cup win. So it feels pretty darn good to get back in victory lane, especially with a team like this and a race this big. It's pretty awesome.
So when you end up in this at engineering role at the Wood Brothers, that's kind of the first time it seemed like where you could really just focus on that side of the game and not be a backup pit crew guy or anything like that.
Right.
Was that a big change to finally get a focus, or like I said, did you miss any aspects of being on the crew?
So it was definitely a little bit of a transition. So I mean, and coming from a smaller team to a big company like Penske, like stuff works way different. I mean, honestly, when I was still at JTG, sometimes damage stops. Like as I sat on the box as engineer, I had a fire suit and helmet. In damage situations, I would still go over and help, tag out for pit crew guys because I had the hands-on experience and stuff too from the past. And once I came to Penske, there's a lot more of, okay, this is your job. This is the box that you stay in. So that's a little bit of a transition at first. Now, ever kind of since COVID, um, we've kind of learned, even with the bigger teams, to do a little bit more with less people. Um, so, like, for instance, sometimes I'll fill in for our tire guy and do tires. So I'll do tires and my job. I haven't done any picker stuff, I don't think, since 2017 was the last time I actually went over the wall. So those days are far gone. I mean, there's certainly times where I wonder, could I still hold up these days? But, I'm quite a bit older and, the stops have changed a ton. Like last time I did pit stops, we didn't have the ride height rule. We had ride height rule. So the car wasn't super dropped. We had 5 lug nuts. We had 2 tire carriages. It's quite a bit different. So certainly different for sure.
You mentioned going over the wall in repair situations, and we talked a lot about that last year there because there are some key instances at Daytona and Bristol where that was really necessary to keep you guys alive in the playoffs. Now you said there's guys that already are kind of, that's their job now, but
Yep.
they are doing that, they are going over the wall and fixing things. Are you kind of like chomping at the bit, like, man, like I know I can get over there and help fix this? Like, is there any tension involved in that?
So honestly, not really. So Ray and the guys are awesome. They do a great job. And honestly, last time I did anything like that, it was quite a bit different. We were actually allowed to put parts back on the car.
Yeah.
We could do way more back then. We had truck arms and completely different suspension. Now these guys are out there changing toe links and all kind of stuff. While it was a transition like earlier on, now I just kind of sit back and let those guys do their job. Some of the tools we have now, I'm actually able to like feed them information that can kind of help them out. But yeah, that's certainly changed quite a bit. Now Ray and the guys do a great job. I'm pretty comfortable now just kind of watching them do their thing.
Now on race day, like last night, are we talking about strategy as like pit call strategy? Are we talking about how to make the adjustments with air pressure? What types of things are you helping Jonathan with?
So a little bit of everything. So a big part of it's the fuel mileage piece. It's gotten easier in recent years. We have some kind of telemetry stuff that helps us out a little bit. It's still not an exact science. But I'm able to tell him, like, so for instance, there in the second stage, we were going to be a little bit close on fuel. So I'm watching the telemetry telling Jonathan, hey, we need to save a little bit. We don't. Okay, we're in good shape now. He can go ahead and run hard. So that sort of thing, when we need to pit, say you're trying to split and get the most out of your tires, it's easy to to do it ahead of time. But then as you get cautions and stuff factored in, that's like, okay, well, our split lap is this. We have a lot of tools I can look at, like, okay, other people are talking about the same thing, so maybe the track's trending this way. So I feed him that kind of stuff, information. Jonathan does an amazing job of making these calls. I'm just basically just kind of feeding him information to kind of help facilitate that.
Yeah, it was funny because the question I was going to ask was about that fuel run because I listened to the scanner actually during the race. That's actually how I put my race report together, and I knew exactly what was going on. They were saying to save, to save, to save. The TV side was so funny because the TV side was saying, "Oh, well, he's only got short run speed, and that's why he's not really pulling away." And I was like, "No, he's not pulling away because he's trying to save fuel to the end of the
Right.
end of the run." And it really was amazing because at the point that you guys said it was okay to go, then all of a sudden
He was gone.
he was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're watching for what? You're watching for like his on throttle time, things like that. Is that how you figure
Yes.
that out?
Yeah. So we can watch his throttle trace. With SMT, I mean, everybody has access to it, right?
Mhm.
So we can kind of watch. It's like, okay, maybe he's lifting a little bit early. Maybe at the end of the straightaway, he's not quite at wide open throttle. So we can kind of see when he's trying to save us a little bit. That's a big help. That's something we didn't have in the past. Back in the past, we'd say, hey, save us some fuel. And I had instances in the past, like years and years ago, we say, hey, save us some fuel. And they go faster. It's like, okay, you're not saving us fuel. It's like, well, they were, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Sometimes you gotta go slow to go fast, right?
Mhm.
So now we can actually see, okay, yes, he's saving us. All right, so he's lifting early. He's a little slower getting back to the throttle. Maybe like at a speedway, he's only running part throttle. That kind of stuff is a huge help for us. Before we were kind of taking their word for it. Now we can almost kind of quantitatively say, okay, approximately what he's saying.
Now, I mentioned about things changing again from the beginning of your career to now. We've, like I said, a lot of these stories about people packing up their stuff, going to North Carolina, trying to find an entry level job, and then working their way up. Is it still like that in this sport, or has the way that people are entering the sport now kind of changed pretty dramatically?
Um, it's changed a little bit. Um, I say you still see some of that. Um, but I mean, I feel like just the way people look at things in general has changed. Like back when I was trying to get into it, it's like, okay, whatever it takes, whatever I got to do, like, you know, let's go for it. We'll do it. I feel like now, like the younger generations feel like it's easy. Things are easier than it really is. Um, so yeah, I feel like it's changed a little bit. Like I said, obviously for me, I've been down here since 2009, so clearly we've seen quite a bit of a change. And I've come across a couple like younger people like, hey, how do I get in? What do I do? It's like, look, you've got to come down here. You got to be dedicated. You got to be willing to do the jobs that other people don't want to do, and doing the best that you can. Because what a lot of people are looking at is your work ethic and your drive, not necessarily what it is the job that you're doing. Because if you show that you can do the most entry level job really well, you can probably do the next job pretty well, and then kind of work up from there.
I know you did it while you were in college, but you talked about working at the local chassis shop. You talked about working on some dirt cars and things. Is just another thing if you're at your local short track, just start walking around the pits and start volunteering?
Yeah, and honestly, just ask to work for free. That's how I got to start. There was, like I said, I found the email address for the guy that ran the place, and I sent him an email. I was like, hey, listen, I'm really interested in racing. I don't want a job. I just want an opportunity to learn. I'll work for free. I'll do whatever you want me to do, and that's fine. And honestly, by the time I graduated college, like I was doing everything there was to do in the shop. I was, like I went from, okay, what do I do with this camber shim thing? Or actually back then we had swedge tubes and all this stuff. It was very different. It's like, what do I do with this? What's a pull bar? What's a lift bar? I need a spring and this rubber biscuit thing. What do I do? I had no idea. To the point where it's like that stuff all became second nature. So the probably 3.5 years that I did that, I went from, hey, I'm really interested in this racing thing. This is what I want to do. Somebody steer me somewhere in the right direction to, okay, I got a handle on this. I'm ready to go and do the next thing. It was a great opportunity, and I'll be forever grateful for it.
Now, you worked on trucks, you worked on Xfinity cars, you worked on the last generation of Cup cars. What was your first impression on the switch over to the next gen car? Happy, sad, nervous, angry? I mean, it seems like across the garage, everyone was kind of all over the place on that change.
It was. I mean, I'm not a big change guy to begin with. I'll lead with that. It was certainly different. There were some things that's like, why are we doing this? Why we're doing it? Um, as things have evolved improved. It's gotten definitely better. There's pros and benefits to this car. I still think there's a lot of benefits that the old car had that maybe they shouldn't have just, thrown out with the bathwater. I think they were very, set on a totally clean slate. I think there's some stuff about the old car that was better. I think there's some stuff about the new car that's better. I think, ideally somewhere in between would probably be the best deal, but we got what we got, and I think it's improving, and we're just gonna keep going with it.
We talked a little bit about making adjustments on the car, and that was kind of a thing that happened throughout this 600-mile race at Charlotte. We talked a little bit about it seemed like Ryan had a really great short run car. Obviously, there was still a lot of speed over the long run, but it did seem like, at least from the TV broadcast, he could trend loose. The crew made some adjustments with a wrench in the back of the car throughout that, especially maybe one really crucial one at the end of the race. Can you talk about making adjustments on this car, and then maybe a little bit about the adjustments that were made throughout this race that gave it kind of the winning speed it needed?
Yeah, so I feel like we had a pretty strong car out of the box, and like you said, we did definitely trend a little freer on the long run. And this race, historically, as it cools off and goes into the night, the racetrack itself trends freer also, right? So it's kind of a fine line between balancing. Okay, we need to make sure that we're protecting against the long run. We want to stay ahead of the racetrack. You never want to get behind the racetrack, which is easy to do, right? Because you don't want to make those adjustments too soon. Okay, so the next thing you know, you fire off too tight, right? You fire off too tight, you lose track position, and then then you're clawing your way back. So the big thing is, okay, we need to make sure we keep the short run speed in it. We don't want to get too tight firing off. We want to protect against building too free, but then at the same time, we also know as the night goes on, the track's going to trend freer. So there's a lot of, he says, okay, I'm this amount free. Okay, we know what to adjust for that amount free. But then we also have to anticipate, okay, how much freer is the track going to get as the night goes on, and do our best to kind of anticipate how much that's going to be, which can be a little bit of a challenge, but worked out pretty well for us last night.
Now, you didn't necessarily make those adjustments right away, because with these pit stops, especially with the next gen car and how fast they are, taking that extra beat, that extra second or half a second to put a wrench in the window can mean 4 or 5 spots on the track. So there's a couple of times where they said, oh, he says he's trending free, they want to do an adjustment, but maybe right now is not the right time, maybe this is not a long enough run to worry about it. What are the talks about making those calls, like on the pit box, and what goes into that?
So that certainly factors in, right? You lose quite a bit more time with this car than the old car when you put a wrench in the window. And honestly, Picker guys did an awesome job last night. Never got out of the 9-second bracket on pit stops, despite the fact that we stuck a wrench in the window 3 times. They did an awesome job. Basically, we knew we had a strong car, and we knew we needed to protect on the long run, right? So even if, say, we maybe lost 1-2 spots on pit road by putting the wrench in the window, we knew that the car was good enough, and Ryan was certainly on it last night, and we knew we'd be able to get the spots back, and that maybe half second to 3/4 of a second penalty that we paid on pit road, we knew he would easily make it back up on the track.
This was go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, so the atmosphere, like, where are you sitting in relationship to Jonathan? Are you literally right next to him? Are you somewhere else near a computer? I mean, how are you guys set up in the box up there?
So more or less next to him. So kind of the way our pit box is set up, we have 2 on the left and 2 on the right. I'm on the right side of the left side, and he's on the left side of the right side. So in between us, there's another computer monitor, and not really a seat there. So, there's a couple of feet between us. We have an intercom, so we can talk just like the 3 of us are talking right now. So it's easy to communicate back and forth. He's got all kinds of data in front of him. We've got several monitors that I'll run them all from my machine. And like that SMT that we talked about before, he can say, hey, I'd like to see us versus, the 45. The 45 is pretty fast yesterday. So from my machine, I can dial it up real quick, and he can watch both drivers' telemetries side by side right there. It's the way the technology is. Our IT department stuff does a great job. Our stuff is really top notch, and we're able to do a lot with that regard.
Now, is there a war room back at Penske that you're also talking with over your intercoms and feeding data to, and in other situations as the race goes on?
So we have a group back at the shop, race support group. Everybody's plugged in. Like I said, technology wise, we're super hooked up. Um, there's some races that I'll do remotely from the shop, and honestly, it's really not much different than I'm there, other than not seeing the car in the pit box. But I've got an overhead pit cam that I can watch from the shop. Um, we can talk from our laptop. Say we're racing in Fontana, could easily talk on the analog radio all the way across the country, sitting there right at the desk in the shop. You can be on the intercom from the shop, analog radio, our digital radios. We're getting the same feed. Honestly, the only thing that's really slowing behind is the TV feed. It's about a 6 or 7 second delay. Everything is pretty darn close to real time. So it's pretty awesome what we're able to do.
Now, you mentioned the pit crew. This was arguably their best performance of the year, best performance, and I mean they've been really consistent this year. But just when you said sub 10-second stops all day long,
All night.
if it wasn't for the advantageous pit box that the 24 car had, I think you guys would have beat them off pit road majority of the time. You have a history of being a pit crew member. That was kind of the first thing that you got into the sport with. Does that make you more critical of the pit crews, or does it make you a little bit more understanding when they do have some hiccups or mistakes along the way?
Both, I think.
Yeah.
There's some parts that you're more critical of. There's some parts it's like, man, I get that, and like I said, the 24's box, having pit stall one at Charlotte is huge. I mean, you have to go a few feet just to get to the camera, and you're done, right? You don't have we lose speed, obviously, as you run pit road. You lose speed decelerating and accelerating back to pit road speed, right? They basically just have to decelerate. They don't have to accelerate all the way back to pit road speed. So they're already well ahead of the game. So, yeah, it's frustrating to have them beat you off pit road every time, knowing our pit crew guys are doing a darn good job. It's really just can't overcome that pit box. I mean, they would restart, or they would come in pit road fourth and just keep coming out first. The 24 guys did a great job on pit road, but the box was what was beating everybody. So yeah, that's frustrating, but I mean that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles, right? When you're picking pits, you're going to pick the best one that you can, and certainly some are better than others, and that's just something. That's just part of it.
Now, you mentioned 9 years between your last Cup Series win. This was 59 races for Ryan. You did at least get to, you're with the team last year when they won the All-Star race, which obviously
Yes,
really awesome. So you did get to experience this a little bit. But can you talk about the emotions and just waiting that long, waiting an extra day, even just this weekend, waiting for a 600-mile race, and then finally getting to victory lane and celebrating with this team you've been with for the last couple of years?
Yeah, it certainly makes it a little bit sweeter, right? You sit around the racetrack all weekend in the rain, soggy, muddy, waiting around, just ready to get the thing going. And it's made that wait, I guess, just a little bit longer, but yeah, it makes it a little bit sweeter. It's certainly a special feeling, and it is pretty damn nice.
You ready to go out and get more?
What's that?
Ready to go out and get more?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We had a great cart in St. Louis last year. I think we got a darn good chance of winning one this week.
It's like the lid's off the ketchup now, right? It'll just start coming out. That's it.
Absolutely.
So you're sitting up at the pit box there, and I noticed there's some people behind you, sponsors sometimes. I saw his girlfriend back there. How wild was that with them over your shoulders at the end of the night? Were they jumping on top of you guys?
I mean, yeah, they're definitely back there, definitely getting into it. But honestly, you're so laser focused on what's going on, everything just kind of tunes out. Everything just kind of slows down. You're just focused on what's right in front of you. And then obviously once Ryan crosses the finish line, it's a totally different story from there. It's the celebration certainly begins, and it's something else.
Yeah, I told Steve I feel like I need to go back and watch, and this is just even as a fan's perspective. I need to go back and watch that last run because I don't feel like I paid as much close attention. I was just waiting for something to happen. All right, when is this caution going to happen? When is someone going to hit a wall? When is like his tire going to go down? Like something fluke. I mean, guys were losing it, on their own during this race. I'm like, when's he gonna spin out? And like the last 5 laps, I'm like, just get to the white flag. Just get to the white flag. Just that it finally happened. So, I mean, for me as a fan, that's my experience. I know for a lot of you, and I just can't imagine the stress that you guys are going under, and not even the stress, but you got to be prepared to know what to do when if a caution did come out with 5 to go.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what we're sitting there talking about. It's like, okay, what happens when a caution comes with 6 to go, 7 to go, right? It's like, okay, you're out front, so you don't know what anybody behind you is going to do. You know, if you stay out and you have 3 or 4 guys stay behind you, you're probably fine. You're the only guy that stays out, you know, you're a sitting duck. So it's certainly something that we were thinking about and preparing for. And honestly, hard to say what the call would have been, but really glad that it stayed green for us and got the win.
Who comes up when you say call? Who comes up with all these code words for the different calls?
So I'm the guy that does that. So basically, what I got is in one of my spreadsheets, I've got all of our a lot of our sponsors. So we have sponsors, colors, and numbers, and I have a little Excel program, and it's a random number generator, and it randomly sorts them every week, and that's what we stick in the card, and we stick on our notebooks, and that's what we go with. So yeah, it's different every week, so we can keep them guessing.
Yeah, I heard number 3 yesterday, and anymore I just wait to see what happens because I really don't know what number 3 is. Discount a couple times has come up, and I knew it was some sort of a 2-tire or no tire type of thing, but I know it changes every week too. I was always curious where that came from.
It's totally random. It's typically sponsors, and we just we make it totally random, and that way, like I said, just like you don't know what it is, that's exactly what we want, because we don't want the guys we're racing against to know what it is. Hopefully, we can catch them by surprise.
Now, lastly, the Coca-Cola 600's a crown jewel race. Ryan's first. Easy question. Does that make it a little bit more special than if you were just to win it at Gateway? Not just to win, you're winning the Cup Series, but if you were to win Gateway, winning a race like the Coca-Cola 600 just make it a little bit sweeter. Oh,
absolutely, 100%. It's definitely one of the like I said, it's one of the crown jewels, and I mean, heck, it's the longest race that we run. It's very prestigious, and to be able to win that one is just a little bit more special for sure.
Right, locked in the playoffs. Don't have to worry about that.
Absolutely, that is a huge relief off our shoulders. Absolutely.
Yeah, second in points by just 1 point right now, and I think setting up for a really, really great summer stretch ahead for this 12 team.
Sure hope so.
Well, Tony, I think for myself and Steve, we want to thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time, especially so soon after that Coca-Cola 600 victory that just came last night with Ryan Blaney and that Team Penske number 12 team. We wish you so much luck going forward, and hopefully you guys get an opportunity to compete in the championship for at Phoenix a little bit later this year.
Absolutely. I greatly appreciate it. Really enjoyed talking with you guys.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.